Welcome to the Dream Show. I'm Jane Teresa Anderson, and this is episode 304. And my guest today, offering her dream for us to explore and interpret, and then sharing her story, is breakfast announcer Leah Tindale. Leah Tindale loves to chat, bringing laughs and news to the people of Western Australia every morning on Triple M Breakfast Southern WA. And she also hosts her own independent podcast, Note to Self, which gleans notes of wisdom from people around the globe. Now, exploring a dream with a guest on the podcast is a relatively light process compared to my private work with clients. On the podcast, we pick out some highlights, hint at some dream interpretation tips, and discover insights that feel safe and appropriate to share in public. If you consult me privately, we go deeply into your dream, uncover everything you need to know, relate it to your life, and, if you wish, apply processes to shift beliefs and patterns that are limiting or blocking you, move you past stuck, see solutions to problems, and get inspired about your next steps. So to find out more about my services and courses, go to janeteresa.com. That's Teresa without an H, and the direct links are in the show notes. And if you haven't done my course, How to Interpret Your Dreams Step by Step, yet, today is your day. You can begin right now, and that link is also in the show notes. Also, a reminder that you can now watch the Dream Show on my YouTube channel. So let's go to Bunbury in Western Australia and meet Leah. Welcome to the Dream Show, Leah.
Thanks, Jane Teresa, for having me.
Well, thank you for staying up, because although it's sort of late afternoon here in Australia and you're in Western Australia in Bunbury, you kind of get up early. You've been working all day already, haven't you?
Yes, yeah, we have an early start. The show, we do the breakfast show, so we start at 6, well, the show's at 6 a.m, but that means, I'm up at 4:30 in the morning, so who knows what you'll get from me today.
I'm sure once we start talking about dreams, we sort of, all tiredness flips away. But that means, what time do you usually get up in the mornings on a shift day?
Usually not too far off rolling into the studio, to be honest. I leave about 15 minutes to get up, grab a coffee and get into work. I only live 5 minutes away, so I've got the window down to a fine art.
That's
so
really
I'm
good.
4:15, and then I can just roll out of bed.
So do you get a long enough sleep, like to have lots of dreams and time to remember them?
I do. I go to bed at 7:30, so otherwise I just won't be able to survive. And I can fit in so many dreams. I think we've spoken before, and you said we can dream, if I remember this correctly, maybe between like 3 to 5 different dreams a night.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And I think I do fit in sometimes all of them. I don't remember all of them, but sometimes I do.
We don't all we who have the luxury of more conventional hours don't remember all of them either, but as long as you remember enough of them, that's great. Okay, so, just for people listening in, you've mentioned that we've spoken before. So you have a podcast, which we'll talk about a lot later. And we'll talk about a lot later, and we'll also talk a lot later about it. Right. And on that podcast, amongst other things, I did do a quick interpretation of a couple of your little dreams, but I know you've saved a biggie for today for us to go in a bit deeper. So I'm all ears, and I'm going ready to take notes.
Oh, great.
Because, of course, I have no idea what you're going to tell me. So.
Amazing. Okay. Well, so the dream I've saved for you is a reoccurring dream that I had growing up that no one's ever been able to explain to me, but it has perplexed me my whole life. So it would have started back when I was maybe, I think, 6 or 7 years old, and I'd have the same dream every evening, and they would flow into each other. So they became like a storyline that I would remember that I had this dream over and over and over again. And it's fascinating to me because I've never come across anybody that's had a dream with a storyline that continues. Which is crazy. And then I remember the day it finished, and there was an element in the dream that I'll talk about briefly with you as well. And then after I had that sort of finishing dream, I never had it again. and I've never had it since. So it's very, very bizarre. So it's a huge dream. So there's a lot to unpack in it. But I can take you from the start. So basically, it's a dream where I am being chased by some boys from primary school, kindergarten sort of age. And I'm running away from them, and I'm trying to find. I had a boyfriend at the time in preschool called Ryan, and I'm trying to find Ryan and get his help to get these little boys to stop chasing me. And then I see Ryan in the distance, and he goes into this little room, and then he jumps into a computer. And like computer technology is obviously only sort of just coming out, when I'm having these dreams. So it's wild that they've made their way into my mind. And then I'm trying to find a way to escape from these boys from being chased. So the only thing I think to do is, I'll have to jump in the computer as well. So then I jump in the computer, and unfortunately, the little boys that are chasing me all follow and jump into the computer as well, which is so annoying. And so then what happens every night is I dream about being stuck in this computer and being stuck in this computer game like reality where I'm running away from these boys who are chasing me. And I had the dream so often, I used to call it Finding Ryan, who was the boyfriend. And so I'd be in the dream and the whole time just trying to find Ryan, because I knew that I'd find him and we'd get out of the game together. And sometimes I'd find him and then we'd be running around the different parts of the dream, the game in the computer together. And then all of a sudden he'd disappear and I'd lose him again. And then the only other very cool thing I had was I could fly in this dream as like a last resort to get away from the little boys who were chasing me. But the only way I could fly was if I like squatted down on the floor really hard and like really concentrated and pushed down, and then I could jump up in the air and fly off. So it was never an easy thing. It was a crazy dream. And honestly, I think it happened, I had the same dream for about a year to 2 years. And then it all finished. One night I had this dream of, it was a face, and the face appeared to me and it said, I'm not going to torment you with this dream anymore. I'm going to torment other little boys and girls. And then I woke up, and then I never had the dream ever again.
And was that a kind of unknown face, or was it somebody you knew from preschool? Or
no, it was unknown face. My brain in the morning, and since that time, I grew up with the Christian faith. So the interpretation that I was told, and I suppose I interpreted at the time, was that it was the devil. So and that was the only image that I had. So not a face that I could say that I knew. But very, very odd and very scary for a small child.
Very scary, getting stuck in a computer, especially when the computer was something that was sort of still a new thing as well.
Exactly, yes.
So although you say that last face, people will talk to you about it and you thought, well, maybe it's the devil. Did you actually think that in the dream, or was that something that you thought about later?
I think it's something that I thought about later. I can't remember what I thought at the time. I can still recall the image of that dream, like that. It's so clear to me. But I'm pretty sure at the moment I was just like, taken aback of what the heck just happened.
It worked. It worked. It was a bit of magic.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm also laughing because the structure of the Dream Show podcast is that every 4 weeks we have a guest, as people listening will know. And in between, 2 weeks later, I put out a little one called an interlude. And I usually, just for efficiency's sake, I record that at the same time. So I actually recorded that earlier today. Yeah. And half of that is about asking people about what different flying styles they have.
Oh, amazing.
And you've just added another one, squatting down low and jumping up.
Yes, it's a new skill. That's great.
So when you, so one of the beauties of a recurring dream is that because our dreams reflect usually what's been going on for us in the last 1 to 2 days. Every time we have a recurring dream, it's reflecting what's just been going on for us. But yours was continuous.
Yes.
So this was something that effectively was going on and on and on for you in your waking life from the age of 6 to 7 when it started to this dramatic moment when you had this fabulous end of all dreams dream.
Yes.
This is great. Have you any idea what else was happening at the time that you had the final dream when that face came in? Like, do you know where you were at in life, or?
I'm not sure, because that whole early time was quite tumultuous. So my parents were getting a divorce. We had moved from Queensland over to Perth. And I think at the time when it finally finished, we were we got kicked out of the house we were living in. They changed from renting it to wanting to sell it. So we had to find somewhere else. So I'm pretty sure it was in amongst that transition time. And I don't remember any other houses having this dream other than the one that we first sort of rented when we came to Perth. So that's the kind of connection, I suppose, with those big moves.
That makes sense. So when it started, when you were 6 to 7, was that also the time when you went over to Perth and stayed in that house?
Yes, yeah. So I'm pretty sure they started when I first arrived. I don't remember having them in Queensland. So, yeah, and that's probably the closest association I've ever gotten to sort of unpacking why I had that dream, because I was having such big ruptures of life.
Yes, yeah, huge. You're right. Very few people have even one dream that continues in theme from one night to the next, let alone on and on for 2 years.
Yeah. Very special.
Very, very special. You're a very special person, Leah.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, although a lot of the dream was stuck, you indicated that it was slightly different each time, like you played the video game a little bit differently each time. So at some level, you were also practicing your creativity, your storytelling. You could look at it that way, because as well as dreams processing what's happening for us in life to update our mindset and kind of find solutions for us, they can also practice our creativity to deal with problems in life. Our adaptability, our flexibility. So to me, one of the fortunate spin-offs from that is it did contribute to your storytelling and developed that, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
That's the plus side.
That's good.
Otherwise, your brain was a bit slow on sorting out this problem.
Yes.
But most of us with recurring dreams, do, because the point of a dream is actually to process what's been happening and present us with a solution or a different way of looking at life. But recurring dreams don't usually end kind of unresolved or, I was stuck or this didn't happen. And that's when our dreaming mind is actually unable to solve that problem or come up with a solution. So we see that this is something that as a 6, 7, 8-year-old child, you were actually unable to resolve or find a solution, even though you tried many different ways of looking at it, the storyline. But one of the redeeming features was Ryan.
Yes.
Yeah. So in waking life, what was special about Ryan?
Well, he was the boyfriend in preschool. So I'm not sure what the equivalent is now. I think it's sort of like kindergarten, the first year of school, or before that actually. And yeah, he was my boyfriend. So in Queensland, in Townsville actually, so small town. And it's funny, I can't really remember much about him other than, like, for some reason he was my boyfriend.
Yeah.
In that early stage of life. And yeah, I presume some sort of comfort for me, because I didn't have, I don't remember friends from school at that time or anything. I just mainly remember young Ryan. So
yeah, I wonder if Ryan's listening in.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be wild.
So he was your first boyfriend in Queensland before you made the move. So also at some level, how comfortable was life in Townsville before you moved?
Oh, well, we were, my father was the pastor of a church in Townsville. So I suppose as not very lavish or sort of comfortable in that sense. And we had already moved, so we lived on Magnetic Island. He was the pastor of the church there. And then he got this role in Townsville, and there was a lot of travel to Brisbane as well. So there probably was a little bit of always, movement and I know mum and dad were a little bit rocky in even before, earlier to moving over to Perth. So I wouldn't say it was super comfortable or super sort of, smooth sailing. And I don't have a lot of memories necessarily at that time. Just more now after the fact, you glean, that's different interesting bits. But yeah, I think it would have been more stable than the Perth chapter of life.
Yes.
And then, still a lot of movement though, I think.
And probably, in going to preschool in Townsville, that was a constant, no matter whether there was a lot of movement or whatever else was happening. Yeah.
Yes, I still had the first year of schooling, I think, probably being the one thing that you could rely on, you could still rock up and do, which is good.
So, normally with a person in your dream, you'd say, well, what are the 3 personality things that you identify with this person? But what you've said there is you don't actually really remember Ryan much. It's more the feeling of he was your first boyfriend. It was in Townsville. The dream started after you left Townsville. So he probably represents the part of you that was relatively comfortable in Townsville. That was your life then. And so for him to be lost and you're looking for him when you go to Perth, Western Australia, is you're looking in your dream for something that you've left behind in Townsville. I'm looking for a part of myself or part of my way of life or a part of my comfort that I've left behind then, particularly because you were always looking in the dream for Ryan to protect you. There's some kind of, I felt more protected in some area of my life when I lived in Queensland than I do now in Perth, and wanting that protection. How would you look at, I know you're looking back at, trying to remember what life was like when you were 6 or 7, it's hard, but in terms of protection.
I was going to say, I have thrown you a spanner with this dream. I don't know if you're usually used to more fresh ones, but it's such an interesting one because it's so... Yeah, it's so weird, and it's haunted me for so long.
Yeah, I can see. And, Leah, the fact that it has haunted you for so long is not just curiosity, wanting to understand it, but it means there may be some element of it which is still happening in your life now. So it still exists in that way. So because the essence of the first part of the dream was really the essence that you felt you'd lost your protection. You've lost someone who could look after you. When you think of moving from Townsville to Perth, was there a feeling, or being in Perth, a feeling of not having protection, of feeling unprotected in any area of your life?
Yeah, I think so, because, there was a huge change as well of mum and dad not living together anymore. Dad didn't come over with us straight away. He stayed in Townsville and wrapped stuff up, and I don't even think we knew if he was going to move initially. So that was definitely, a great loss as well. And, a lot of instability as well, I think. So, that there is, you're losing a sense of safety and routine and structure as well, I think, which is... definitely evident in the dream.
It is, and on that note, isn't it interesting that one thing that you managed to do with your dreaming life was create some kind of structure. This is the dream I'm going to have every night, right?
Yes.
And then when I'm relatively comfortable, I'm going to make some little changes and practice my creativity. But basically, whatever's happening in my waking life, I'm going to have structure at night.
Yes, that's amazing, actually. The brain's clever.
It's interesting that Ryan is a boy, and it's boys following you in the dream. So apart from you, the all male energy. And your dad there was a question mark at the beginning on whether your dad was coming across or not, and he wasn't going to be living in the same house. So there's a sense there of not having that male energy protection around you as well.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. Even though you kind of scaled it down to little boys of my age, even though some of them were scary, it was kind of like bring it down to your level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember how you felt at school in Western Australia?
I can remember the feeling of the dream more, I suppose, than the schooling. Because I was just thinking when you were mentioning the little boys about how, that sense of being chased relentlessly and you wanting them to stop and have reprieve and have some sort of peace and, and some quiet. Because I feel like I did enjoy school from the beginning, but most of my schooling memories are quite from that time anyway. They're not traumatic things, but I would injure myself. I ran into a tabletop once and had like my front teeth all went black and they thought they were going to fall out and things like this. So I think that's overridden those sorts of actual day-to-day memories of school. And so the only thing I can glean from is, the feeling of being chased, being sort of picked on a little bit. And so I'm not sure if that was a reflection of the day-to-day schooling. I imagine it probably is on some level. But it was very tiresome. Very tiresome.
And for any child of that age, it's hard to be the new kid, not only the new kid in the school where everyone else is already a bit established, but also from a completely different, culture in Australia, really.
Yeah, exactly. And trying to fit in and all of those things as well, which we definitely struggled to do as we went through our schooling, because we, as a children of divorce and all of those sorts of things, we always had a lot of financial pressures. We always were shopping in op shops and things like that. So I remember, free dress days, always feeling like the outsider and the one that wasn't up to date with the latest whatever that you meant to have as a kid. I think there was definitely some unrest, unfortunately. Like what might have started as a very positive experience in school definitely had a lot of stresses put on it as it went on.
And those little boys could also then represent those stresses, the things that are kind of following you or on your tail that you really want to get out of your life. I don't want these things to bother me, these irritating things. I want to just enjoy. So Ryan dived into the computer and then you dived into the computer thinking that would help too. What was the state of using computers at school at that stage in your life?
I don't think we would be using them much. I must have seen them somewhere because we didn't have a computer in our home until I was in year 6 or 7, so much later. So I think I must have just gleaned from what you watch and see, and maybe probably like TVs talking about it all of a sudden a lot, and you can see that you can play games. So I had very minimal interaction and experience with them. I think there might have been 1 or 2 computers at a school that you could look up, books or something like that. So I feel like, and a lot of the things I knew about computers were very, like even in the dream, it's almost as if it was more TV-esque than it was. Even though it was in my mind a computer, it had more sort of, TV elements than I think computer elements, because I didn't have that sort of
that's
information.
Interesting. And did you watch a lot of television at home at that age?
Not a huge amount. We were only allowed to have a certain amount per day or per week. It's not really, that common, which is another strange thing because it was so rare, and you watch the classics, you play school and things like that. But we were very much encouraged to get outside sort of family. And then, I never knew, like all my friends and things growing up would always be talking about different shows that they were watching, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So it's very much not the cool gal up with all the trends or anything like that. Which is why I think, and again, it's a weird thing to have in a dream, but it was so clearly that it was a computer. But I must have seen something.
Well, one of the many things you said there was that you felt that you gleaned the idea that a computer was something to play games on.
I just remembered something actually, Jane Teresa. I just remembered that, and I can't believe I haven't put these two things together before. So when my dad came to Perth, he changed jobs to work in IT. And so he works with computers. So, of course, I know about from that. But I think in my mind, I never put that together because I just thought, because I was so little, I didn't really know what Dad did. But I must have known.
You must have known.
There's the answer to the question. I can't believe I haven't thought of that before. That's hilarious. Okay, great.
No recollection of him showing you video games on computers or anything?
No, not till much later, once the dream had been and gone.
Yeah.
But I must have, because he used to have a massive, manual that every year they'd put out these big manuals of how the different upgrades to computers before you could use the computer to find out, what was happening. And so he'd have all these big computer books that he'd be reading through to find out what the next thing is to help his clients with and stuff. So yeah, it was a very weirdly practical way that he was then doing, yeah, a computer, or now what now is a digital, really digital thing,
Yes, yeah.
which is really
So in
odd.
many ways, the computer at some level of your life when you were little, the computer at some level represented my dad's change of job
Mm,
and him doing something really practical, but something extremely new,
yes,
designed to
exactly.
help other people in some way.
Mm.
What was when you spent time with your dad? How did that feel?
I loved hanging out with my dad. I still love hanging out with my dad. That makes it sound like he hasn't passed away. He's still with us. But we didn't get a lot of time. So we were with him every fortnight for the weekend. So yeah, what's that? 2 to 3 days, every fortnight. So not very often. And then as we got older, we had less and less time because he was trying to grow his business, and he just, yeah, being, when you're an owner of a
Yeah,
business, you're very time poor. Um, so I think I really struggled with never not feeling like I got enough time or attention from dad. And
yeah,
even early on, when we first moved into the house, I mentioned earlier that we got kicked out of because they wanted to sell it. He would come and visit because he tried for a long time to get back together with my mum. And whenever he would visit, we'd, have be so excited and have all these sort of games and things we'd want to do with him for when he arrived. And I'd be making mud pies out the front in the dirt and like giving them to him as gifts and all of these sorts of things. So I definitely think there would have been definitely a longing to have more time with him.
yeah.
It's making me really sad now, actually.
I know.
Oh no, poor little Leah.
I think we can all look back in our childhood and feel sorry. Not feel sorry is not the right word, but have empathy for what we were going through that we didn't
Yeah,
realise at the time. But a lot of lovely things you said there, Leah. One including when Dad came over to visit you, you played games, not video games, but you played games. You sorted
yeah,
out games and had ready. So there was an association of when Dad's here potentially to get back with Mum. When I get that feeling of being in a family again, I associate that with games, with
yeah,
excitement.
yeah.
And I was thinking to some level in the dream when Ryan and you dived into the computer, was that kind of like some kind of escape? Like, I'm going to get out of reality. Although I think you said, I wrote it down, that when you jumped to the computer, it was like a reality. It was a reality computer game. So it was like jumping into a different reality.
Yes, a
So,
different world.
yeah. So whether as a child it was like, if Dad comes home, we'll play these games, it'll be a different reality. It'll be an
Mm,
escape from I'll feel more protected. It'll be an escape. Not, I mean, your life with your mum would have been wonderful, but it would be an escape from this new reality into something that feels more familiar. That's what I
mm.
want. I want Ryan or my dad or Townsville
Yes,
back in my
yeah,
life.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So sometimes in your dream, Ryan, you caught up with them and sometimes you didn't. And that's all part of, sometimes I've almost got this energy back in my life or this
mm,
hope or whatever it is, this feeling of protection. And sometimes I don't.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let me just see my other notes that I took. Jumps into the computer. Oh, I love that. I'll have to jump in too. So it's like I don't really want to do this thing, but this is the only way out. Was it? I have to jump into the
yeah.
computer.
It definitely felt that way because it was like, yeah, when you see films and they're running away from people and they sort of hide behind the post or whatever, and then they run past and then you get to escape. That was kind of the feeling of like, well, if we duck into this room, into the computer, then hopefully they'll run past. But then sadly, no, they didn't. They jumped into the computer as well. But yeah, definitely trying to escape, I think.
Which all goes to show to us at whatever age we are, whether we're 6 or 96, that you can actually never escape what you're running away from. The only way to deal with it is
No.
to turn around and face it.
Oh, that would have been a much better outcome, I think, if I knew how to do that back then.
Yeah.
That'd be
And if
interesting.
if I was working with you as a child back then, we would have done something like that. We would have reimagined the dream. But we,
Mm,
instead of jumping, at the moment of jumping into the computer, we could have done a million different things, which all would have worked. But at the moment of jumping into the computer, might have got you to turn round, feeling safe because you're awake, and see these children and realize, oh, actually, they just want to play, and say, well,
yeah.
let's just jump in the computer. Let's go and do some amazing stuff. Let's fly. Let's do some stuff. And basically making friends with those parts of yourself that were more worried, and kind of those worries that were chasing you and that you were trying to run away from, or those feelings of not being protected and not being secure, or the feelings of what I left behind in Townsville still chasing me and wanting to escape from those, we would have faced that and kind of, brought some balance into the situation.
Yeah, amazing. That would have been great.
And, if at any time today you sort of feel the feeling of the dream comes back and you look around in your life and go, where in my life is there a feeling a little bit like that? Then you can imagine a similar scenario, even going back to use those dream symbols from childhood, even though you haven't had the dream since, of turning around and inviting them all into like one great big computer game of life.
Yeah, great.
But I'm just looking at, so the essence was, once you were in there, the main emotional and physical feeling was that you were stuck in the computer game. So it wasn't as much fun as I've been portraying about getting into the computer and playing the game. You actually felt stuck, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And part of the trying to find Ryan is so that we could get out of the game together. And because I couldn't, and I'd always be trying the different scenarios, trying to get out and find him. And never getting anywhere, just getting more and more stuck, or like almost getting trapped by someone else, and then narrowly avoiding it and escaping, and it's very stressful.
Very stressful. I wonder how much of that mirrored the feeling in life of I'm trying to imagine all these possible new scenarios in my life, like if Dad came back, or if he moved nearby, or if we did this, or if, all these possible scenarios as a child you work out as possible magical solutions. And yet feeling stuck, like I don't feel that I've got the power to actually make a difference. So maybe I'll try and fly. Was that the thing there?
Yes. Yeah, the flying was a great way to get away quickly if all of a sudden, like I think there was a couple of, you'd be running to the edge of a cliff and there was nowhere to go. So then you have to be like, okay, and then you could do your, squat down and concentrate and zoom off as the only escape. But yeah, it's interesting as well because I am thinking there's probably a lot of a control element, I think, because I have grown up and then become quite the people pleaser, quite the problem solver. So it's interesting then to reflect and think if that's where sort of some of those neural pathways were actually forming in my dreams, helping me to be like, okay, well, if you do become a people pleaser, maybe you'll solve this problem and get myself out of these situations.
Yeah, totally. I mean, just about, I wouldn't put a percentage on it, but I would imagine 80% of our mindset is probably more, is formed in those early childhood years, particularly up to the age of 7. So that everything we experience in life and learn consciously and unconsciously, that's our wiring. And it takes a lot to rewire it, as you just suggested as well. And so doing something like going back with a child and making friends with the kids that were chasing you would be a way of rewiring that mindset and those beliefs when you were a child. And in adult, that's the whole game, rewiring. So yes, I think you've identified that very well. If you see that as people pleasing, like all the possible ways to get out of this situation. I mean, you've got 2 situations there. One was, Ryan's in the computer. I don't want to go in the computer, but if this is the only way, I've got to jump in the computer. Then you've got the cliff edge kind of feeling. I don't want to jump off the cliff edge, but if this is the only way, this is what I'm going to have to do. So there's this kind of other theme in the dream of when life pushes me to a point that I might not otherwise go. I've just got to pull out all my resources and I've just got to jump. I've just got to do this thing to try to make a difference, to try to get protection, to try to get away from all the things that are worrying me and concerning me. How often would you say you do that in life now, apart from people pleasing, which you've identified and probably worked on? Would you say it often comes up where you find yourself kind of cornered or stuck in a situation, you think, right, I'm not going to lay down and die here, so I'm going to, this is what I'm going to do. Do you have that kind of reflex?
I think so. I think I do now. I think, it probably depends on the season of life that you're in. But I suppose you could say, it was built because I'm divorced. And I think one of those things is you get to when something gets irrevocably, damaged and there's a lot of things going on, you get to that tipping point where you're like, I have to push myself and I don't want to jump off a cliff, but I have to, and you have to take some action. So I think now I'm probably a bit better, but there was a period of time where I sort of would be the opposite, and I probably laid down a lot and just hoped that someone would come and rescue me, but
That Ryan
that
would
didn't
come. Yeah.
happen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it is funny because I remember then growing up, and there was always this very idealizing of men and relationships. And I remember I used to daydream all the time, when we were at school camps. I'd have many crushes, and it was always those romantic ideals that I'll be out, going for a walk, and my crush will come running towards me and be like, "Oh, Leah, I just want to hang out with you," and like these big dramatic moments. And then, somehow be whisked off, and all my problems would be disappeared through this being saved by a man. So
Yes.
obviously started very early then in with Ryan, and that in the dreams, I think there's a strong correlation there.
It did, and it's really lovely that you say that, because often one of the many tools of looking at a dream to interpret it is to also look for pairs of opposites in the dream. So from what you've described there, when you look at the dream, you've got stuck. And then the other end of that, you've got, I'll jump into the computer, I'll jump off the cliff and fly. So you've got complete stuck and complete, I'll jump into this and do this thing and put all this power behind me. And those two things can indicate the issue you're working on. So that issue is, do I stay stuck in the corner, or do I jump out of this? Do I stay stuck waiting for this romantic crush to just meet me in slow motion on the beach and love me forever? Or do I take some proactive action into either finding the person or finding myself, or doing what I want, or whatever? That issue there, so beautifully encapsulated as a child. Wow. So you got that in that sense of crouching before flying in your particular flying style there. I know what I feel from that crouching, but what does that, I won't get you to do it now, but if you imagine yourself getting into that crouching position and then flying, what sense does that give you? How does that help you to fly?
It's sort of the effort. It's like, I need to get some sort of propulsion or gusto, or some sort of like the fire, or the propellant behind me. Because if I just leap off, or if I just step off a cliff, if we use that example, there will be I won't fly, because I have not done the propulsion part.
Yeah.
So it was definitely, it always felt like a lot of effort, and it always felt risky, like it may not work.
Yeah. But it did always work?
Yes. As far as I can remember. I don't remember times in the dreams that it didn't, but it always worked.
And you flew each time?
Yes, yeah. And then I could fly for ages. And I actually think a lot of the times I would end the dream when I was flying. I think often that was because it probably was more peaceful as well.
Yes, yeah.
than being on the ground. But not every dream I could do it. Like it didn't come up as an opportunity, if that made sense. It felt like, some dreams made it, okay, yes, I can fly today, so I will do this, squat down and whatever. And then some dreams, it's like that wasn't in my tool belt that day for some reason.
I love that. So you were practicing as a child and actually developing that tool belt to an extent. And sometimes it was something that felt doable, and sometimes it didn't feel doable. But what I love was that you were aware in the dream that this is a risk, like it might not work, but it's going to work a lot better than just stepping off if I put effort into this. So you were learning, and probably in waking life, we'll never know because you don't remember so well in waking life, but you might have been testing in those how much effort you put into things and whether they work better if you put effort into them or not, or how proactive you were trying to be in your life about, feeling comfortable and having your own protection.
Yeah, wow. It's so interesting. There's a lot of things I think about growing up. And then like the relationship that I started to form was one of more like dependency on my mum's decisions, or we'd pray a lot and be like, okay, God will give me the answer. But then when I hear that and listen back to me talking about the dream and what you're saying, is that the dream I was really trying to develop that sense of independence and decision-making in myself. And it's funny, I reflect now, like somehow through my teenage years, I feel like I really lost that. And even in 20s, I've only now been on a journey at the moment to really reclaim that and making decisions for myself and being in my own energy and things like that. So it's funny to see, it has a snapshot, that dream of my almost my true self, how I was trying to land and problem solve, and then sadly lost it because of, life and everything that we just try and do to survive. But it's, very, very illuminating.
Yeah, it is.
My
It's lovely. And so the final thing, I feel that face at the end, even though in waking life you thought, well, that's the devil, you've kind of, again, if you look at opposites in dreams, you've just described life as being, well, I'm praying or want God to help me, want God to be Ryan to help me out of this one. I don't want to do anything myself. So you make that other face maybe like the opposite of that, which you perceived as the devil, wouldn't have been the devil. The opposite is, I can just say, let's put an end to this. Let's put an end to all these worries. Let's just get on and do something about this myself. So, so from that exploration of your long ago dream, what stands out most to you that you hadn't realised before?
I think, the stuff about who I was as a child, I think, in those early stages, and who I was trying to be and become, I think is really, I feel very empathetic and a bit sad for myself, because I was so trying to be strong and brave and, figure out all these things. I was trying to reconnect with my dad, but I had no control over those situations. And so my poor brain was trying to grapple with these things. I feel like I have a lot of compassion that I haven't had in that sort of framework before. And then just seeing the journey of self from there to then where I am now. And like I was saying about feeling like I lost that ability to go, okay, let's just crouch down and accelerate ourselves and make a decision for ourselves and get ourselves out of a spot. I definitely lost. And then it feels quite cathartic to then sit here and chat to you about it in a place where I feel like I can crouch down and fly away if I want to in my day-to-day life, because I have, it's not perfect obviously, but I'm starting that process of becoming more resilient again, and being able to get myself out of problems if I don't like where life is going or what's going on, or all sorts of things. I feel like that's been a really nice little revelation of self, and to see the journey of self too.
Yes, that's really lovely. Well done. And one extra thing you could do in your own time, if you're still feeling that empathy for your 6-7-year-old child, is just to close your eyes and imagine her as she was in the dream, and go and give her a hug. And say to her, I know you make up your own script, along the lines of, I know things were tough, but you did so well. You came up with the idea of the crouch, and you did, and you taught me so much, and and take your conversation from there and just make her feel better from her older, wiser self. Yeah,
that's beautiful. I need to do that.
So you're in a life now where, as you say, you're taking back your ability to be your more authentic self and crouch and put things into perspective. So I would like to ask you more about your own podcast, but also about your own career and how you got here. So let's start with, how did you get into radio, for example?
But it's such a wild story, really, because I still think I've fluked it, and I've somehow convinced someone to let me speak in a microphone, and I don't know why they let me do it sometimes, but it's fantastic. Because I first started to pursue acting for many years, all of my 20s, and then just before I got separated from my ex-husband, I studied public relations. And I went down that path because basically he gave me an ultimatum of, you need to, I'm not supporting your acting anymore. You need to find something else to do. So I studied something else, and it ended up being a lifesaver because, when we did separate, I then had a job and a different income stream that I could rely on, and so it really helped me land on my feet.
You did that crouch thing. I jumped,
yeah, exactly. And then, so I was actually living in Sydney at the time, and moved back home to Perth, and just kept taking really wild risks. I had no experience in digital media, but I applied for this role in digital media and video creation. And I got the job, and I thought, this is weird. Anyway, so I'll, fake it till you make it. They loved everything that I did. They were very happy. And then I saw a job in journalism pop up and I thought, oh gosh, I'd love to write. That would be great. And then I did this creative application and then the next minute I've got an interview with them and then they gave me a job and I thought, oh my goodness, what's happening? And then I had a little bit of a breakdown and I thought, no, I don't need to work. I need to travel overseas and for 6 months. So I quit everything and I packed up for 6 months and I started a podcasting company to support me while I was traveling. So I did that, did some amazing podcasts with some clients and then came back and I thought, what am I going to do now? And a friend of mine said, oh, you'd be great in radio. There's a job going in the community radio station in Perth. So I applied, got that. And then before you know it, someone else was saying, oh, you should work at Triple M. There's a job going in Bunbury. And I thought, oh, okay. And so here I am and I still I don't understand it. I don't really know why, but I've just gone where the open doors are and kind of both backed myself but also gone with the sort of approach of why not?
Yes.
What's the worst that it can happen? They'll say no, and at least I gave it a go. And here I am. So.
I love that story, and also because it's almost got, I didn't mean to refer to the dream again, but it's almost got both of those things.
Yeah.
You're listening for Ryan, God, whoever it is, to say, friends, to say, oh, you should apply to radio, or why don't you, or you see an ad for a journalist or whatever. But then that's the opening, that's the open door you mentioned, but then you've got to crouch and go for it anyway. Yes, so you ended up with both those skills. Do you love it? Triple M?
I do. I really, really do. And I'm very fortunate. My co-host Michael and I, that was another absolutely wild serendipitous thing because the reason I got hired on Triple M, my boss, she knew that eventually she wanted to have it'll be a duo show. And Michael, who had the breakfast show at the time, the person had to work in with him. And so she saw my CV, we had a chat on the phone and she was like, I've just got a good feeling about you. You don't really have the right qualifications, but I've got a good feeling. So come down to Bunbury and we'll have lunch and we'll see how everyone gets on. She and I got on like a house on fire. And then Michael and I met, both our partners were there, and we just clicked, instant chemistry, instant like laughs, same humour, everything. And I've since found out that in radio it's very, very rare. You've got the Carl and Jackie O, you've got your Carrie and Tommy, you got the big names. They're the ones that usually, or Hamish and Andy, they're the ones that people hear about. Most of the time you get paired together with someone out of the blue and you just make it work. And you can still have good chemistry. But yeah, like Michael and I, we just have the best time. And I think, what is my life sometimes? Just get to have fun every single morning. And yeah, I feel very, very lucky and still don't understand how it's happened. But it's one of those things where, yeah, you just got to go with your gut instinct over anything else. Because it didn't necessarily look smart to move to Bunbury. I don't know if you know much about Bunbury at all, Jane Teresa.
Describe it for our listeners.
It's 2 hours south of Perth, the capital city in West Australia. It's coastal town, but it's very industrial still. So it doesn't have all the perks of your quintessential, it's not the Margaret River wine region. It's quite different. People usually would avoid Bunbury when you come down to explore your southern half of WA. So a lot of people would think, why would you move there? That's no good. But you just have to keep going with your gut and you go, well, I think this is the right thing to do and take the leap.
And you've done it. I love that. And, your actual job as a breakfast announcer on Triple M, there's a lot of take the leap on that every day because although there's a lot of structure, it basically relies on spontaneity, doesn't it, and flying by the seat of your pants.
It does, yeah. And because we here, we're very unique. We're on a lot of AM bandwidth still, and we probably will be so for a long time. But as a result, the audience has a different expectation than, say, the Triple M that maybe you get where you are will be FM frequencies, and so it can be a little bit more. It doesn't have to be as newsy and doesn't have to be as local necessarily. Whereas here, because we're on the AM frequency, we have to find that nice balance between local news, big news stories, and then, the fun and ridiculousness that everyone likes to, have a little bit of joy when they turn on their radio in the morning. But so it's a lovely balance, I think. It's a nice place to be in, and to, just go with it. Every morning is a new wild ride.
You've given everyone listening a lovely formula for how to approach their own lives here.
Yeah, good.
Which is really, really good.
Good.
So what came up to make you decide, on top of this really busy life, to then decide to have your own podcast? And how long ago was it you started your podcast? It's called Notes to Self.
Yeah. So I launched that last year in, what was that? Would have been March. So and then this year we have started the second season. And the whole sort of premise of that was, unfortunately, in radio, everything doesn't go very linear. So I got hired, but I was originally hired for a show called Triple M Remote, which goes to all of the far-reaching stations of WA. So, we're talking like Parabadoo, in the desert, mining sites, very obscure. And then we were moving towards the change. It looked like it was going to become this breakfast show. And then I actually, in the end, someone higher up decided it was going to be somebody else that was going to be the co-host with Michael and not me. So they gave me another show to do, and that was fine. I still could be employed, but I was absolutely devastated because I spent the last 2 years with all my eggs in the basket, that I was moving towards this breakfast show that I was going to build. I moved my life down here for this breakfast show that was going to happen. So it was so disorientating for me at that time, and I got in quite a low, and I got to the point where I thought, I can't be in a position again where all of my decisions and choices are not somewhat in my control.
Yeah.
And so the best way to do that, if you work in audio, is to start your own podcast. And whether or not that then grows or whatever it may be, you have something that you're putting out that's in your own creative control.
Yes.
So that was kind of why I was like, started thinking, right, I need to do my own thing. And in an ideal world, you find a studio, you've got money, you've got sponsors from the start, the whole thing, but that never works. Sometimes you just have to just do it as it is now.
Do it from home.
Exactly, yeah. Do it from home. Just do it with whatever equipment you can afford at the time, and just give something a shot. And I still sometimes think, maybe I should change the name of the podcast. Is the artwork any good? But I don't think people really care. Ultimately, the whole podcast's premise was to take people on the journey that I'm on, which is to become, my more authentic self, to live a really true and honest life. And I like to do that by gleaning notes to self from people, from their wisdom, and add it to the tool belt and my toolbox of life that I'm sort of accumulating. And last year's season was a lot more structured. It had a lot more, regular guests and all of these things. This season, I don't know if you find this, Jane Teresa, but it is very tiring to put together podcasts and to always be on the front foot.
Yes.
So this season I've given myself more grace to ebb and flow with it, and to try and take the pressure off myself from being like, no, it has to be out every week. And to just be like, okay, I'm still producing something, I'm still creating something, and trust the process that it'll either evolve into something new, or I'll get to a point where it doesn't serve me and I need to pivot again. But that was a very long answer to your very simple question.
No, look, it's great, and it's spawned a couple of other questions I want to ask you about that. But I agree. When we started the Dream Show, which was nearly 17 years ago now, we started once a week, and it's exhausting. And now I do a guest every 4 weeks, and I do the little talky one only, like 10-minute one, the interlude, 2 weeks in between. But, just doing one show like this, I have help from my son, who does the video now editing and the audio editing. but apart from that, it's, it takes an enormous amount of time, much more than anyone listening in that doesn't have a podcast knows.
Yes.
And sometimes I think to myself, it'd be really great if I had nothing else to do. I'd love to do this once a week. But if I did this once a week, I'd have to have a whole team behind me to do all the other stuff, because it's huge. It's much huger than it looks. And that's with, my show is technically unedited. I mean, our voices are smoothed out to make, my voice is smoothed out to make it sound better. We put the music on, the pictures, all of that. Your show is much more edited. You pull bits out, you take bits out, you put bits in, which is a huge amount of work. Either way, it's huge, and you need a team behind you. So I applaud you for making that decision to say, I'm not doing it weekly, I'm doing it as and when I feel, because it's a huge job on top of what you've got. And the other thing that you mentioned about, changing the structure, I think that's part of the beauty of having creative control of anything, isn't it? We didn't come into this world saying, these are the rules and you can't change them.
Exactly.
Actually, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think Notes to Self is an absolutely excellent title for a podcast show, because it tells you exactly what it's about. But I just want to backtrack slightly and say, you left us, you were disappointed because you didn't get the breakfast slot that you got, which obviously you now have, and you went and started the Note to Self. So what happened to get you into the position that you wanted on the breakfast show?
Well, she went and got pregnant. So she's on maternity leave, and we're actually in an interim where obviously we have a great maternity leave system at work. So you have the 1 year, and then you can have 2 years of your position held. So she will make a decision whether or not she's going to come back for August this year. But basically, as soon as she sort of said that she was going on maternity leave, it was a no-brainer that then it would be me that would fill the role. And we'll watch this space as to what she decides to do. But it was one of those things that, even though I hated what happened, it was probably the best thing that could have happened for me, because there were so many silver linings and learnings that came out of that disappointment. And even what it made me push myself to do, because I couldn't rely on, this is the straight linear path. I thought, okay, well, if that doesn't happen, then what am I going to do? So then you start reaching out to people, you network, you're putting yourself forward, you're making demos, you're a lot more proactive, which in this industry, it can go either way. You can either be like, this is an amazing radio job and, sit on your laurels a little bit. But then if something happens like redundancies or show structure changes, you can be left in the cold, or you can be quite proactive and make things happen. And I feel like that's one of the biggest learnings I've had is, unfortunately, even I hate bad things. I don't wish divorce on anybody. I don't wish, any of these kind of big disappointment of job, when you get overlooked, it's absolutely horrible, but they are so rich of opportunities and chances to do something new and exciting that you would never be able to do, and you'd never be forced to do it if you got your first choice.
Yes.
So it is one of those wild things, and, she's having a great time having a baby, and that's wonderful, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, there you go. It's just
I totally love it. And how well you trained yourself in that childhood recurring dream for that. I mean, it's perfect.
It's so true, isn't it? And I've never really put all of it together, but it really is a perfect example of, my personality forming, and then, the grit that I actually do have and can, really appreciated myself now.
It's great, Leah, and I love that you've also are very open-minded. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next when she's had a baby, what's going to happen, but there's a whole sense coming from you in your words and your everything of just trusting it. Like, I know enough now that I can just trust this.
Yes,
and,
I think it's I probably seem like I do more than I actually do. I think you go through ebbs and flows of, I am a little more of an anxious person, so I have to make a conscious effort to let things go. But the more, when I really think about it and when I'm operating from my true self and not my anxious self, then I'm I feel very calm and at ease with whatever lays ahead. And I try and put the anxious side away.
So from all the notes to self that your guests have shared with you, exclude mine because, you know, you're talking to me now because I was,
Yes.
for people listening in, I was a guest on your show last month. What's one of the notes to self that stands out that you really took on board for
Oh,
yourself?
I haven't prepared this. I've got to, there's been so many wonderful things, a lot of repetition in terms of trusting yourself, backing yourself, creating space for what you need and what you want and whatever that looks like in yourself. That's been a reoccurring theme as well. And really leaning into things that light you up, I think, has been a reoccurring theme as well, which has been fantastic. Because I think I probably also gravitate towards interviewing people who might be a little bit aligned with myself anyway, because then you get to have the best conversations.
You're allowed to do that.
Yeah. But they're the one, yeah, look, they're taking a few risks or they're still wanting to be in a state of play, to be curious. And that's actually another good one. Yeah, just to be, I'm giving so many, I'm trying to, whatever's popping in my head, I'm now just saying stream of consciousness. But yeah, being curious, I think, is another really good thing for both yourself and then also a situation or for others. And then I suppose in your situation as well, Jane Teresa, the dreams is always very good. But there's a lot of good gold nuggets in there.
And so people listening in, a lot of good golden nuggets to go and listen in and watch. Of course, you have the video side of it as well. You can watch or listen, take your pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's called Notes to Self, and it's easy to find the way you would always find it.
Yeah, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the normal stuff. And come and see if you learn anything.
I'll also put the notes in the show notes, the links in the show notes so people can find that. Well, we could talk so much. Anything that you'd like to say to leave our listeners with?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm just very grateful, Jane Teresa, for your time and for your unpacking of my dream. I think it's been so interesting. And it just goes to show as well, we really need to trust ourselves a little bit more, I think. There's a lot of self-doubt or, casting off or like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll look for outside sources. Yeah. But I really feel like the best source is ourselves sometimes, if you can really just lean into those instincts. And then, with our dreams being part of that puzzle and guiding the way, I think you can have such a beautiful, rich life if you just learn to trust yourself and to, keep leaning into your true self. And
stunning note to self for everyone listening.
My final one.
Final note to self until the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing your childhood dream. It was an absolute delight to work through that with you and to see the reflections of it in your life today and to learn more about your job and your podcasts and the beautiful way that you're living your life. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Wasn't that fascinating? And it does always fascinate me how our dreams as childhoods, even though they, of course, belong to our childhood, but we usually, when we look at them, can trace them, aspects of them, through to where we're at in life today. And sometimes we find, as we did with Leah's dream there, that there are elements of things that she was learning, how to approach life, how to do that, just be proactive and get in and fly, and how we learn those things from childhood and how we can see ourselves being inspired from those learnings and those early dreams and using them still. And other times we can see how our dreams indicated, even as children, how we had some limited beliefs, some limited feelings, some repressed emotions, the very years in which we build the foundation of our mindset, conscious and unconscious. And it can be so helpful to look at that and see which of those are still operative in our life now and which we can change through a mix of conscious understanding and applying dream alchemy and other exercises and techniques, and how much of those things we've resolved and left behind us. So always an eye-opener to look back at our childhood dreams, particularly recurring ones. And wasn't that amazing? I can honestly say I've never met anyone before that's had the same recurring dream every night, but just with slightly different variations of storyline for a couple of years. That was fabulous. So I do recommend not only listening, but also giving Leah a follow on her independent podcast, which is called Note to Self. The last one was an interview with me, which as of speaking would have come out in early April 2026, but lots of other fabulous guests and chats that she's got on there. So give her a follow. Give me a follow too if you haven't actually followed the show, whether that's subscribing on YouTube or following on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Well, the follows always help us to become more visible and for other people to find us as well. Leah's Note to Self, you can find her on Spotify, YouTube. You can also find her at an Instagram account. I'll give you a handle, but it will also be in the show notes, as will be the links to her YouTube podcast, Note to Self. Her Instagram handle is at Leah, that's Leah, Leah_Tindale_. Now, I'll have another go at you, asking you whether you've done any of my courses yet, reminding you that you can start today right now with my first course, How to Interpret Your Dreams Step by Step. You may have learned heaps from listening to the podcast over such a long period of time, but there are just those extra techniques and tips, tools that you can access laid out in a way which makes it very logical, surprisingly, for you to be able to approach any dream and get a really deep interpretation doing it yourself. So I do recommend it, no matter how much you feel that you've learned just from listening and being connected with everything that I do. Go there. It's all laid out quite neatly for you. How to interpret your dreams step by step. Sign up at my website. That's janeteresa.com, Teresa without an H. And of course, the link is in the show notes. That's also where you can find out about how to consult me about your dreams in much more depth than we do with our guests on the Dream Show, or to buy my books and do my other courses. So that's janeteresa.com. And just a reminder for those of you that are relatively new, as well as my books, which are all about dreams, which are 7 books on dreams and dreaming, I do also have a novel which I wrote, which is a lot of fun, and it's called Ninth Life. It makes a lot of people laugh, but it's also in a good way. But it's also quite an allegory on life, and it can be as deep as you wish when you take it. You can read it at an entertaining light level, or you can take it, it'd be full of notes to self. So that's Ninth Life. Find all that on janeteresa.com. Thank you, as always, to Ewan Gray for sound editing, video editing, and composing our theme music. And thank you for listening to yet another episode of The Dream Show. Do share with friends and follow. Until next time, have a beautiful day. I'm Jane Teresa Anderson.